You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. I think there's a big paradigm shift that's taking place in business right now, as we've had a lot of guests on the show who have been talking about things such as business as a spiritual discipline. I have given interviews where I'm talking about mindful messaging, serving and not selling. And then there's this weird philosophy that I recently adapted to my sales and marketing process: love them all and let God sort them out. So I think this is really something that we need to pay attention to, because what we're doing isn't working. There's got to be a higher purpose to our life and to our business, and it has to involve people. And that's where today's guest has really dialed this in the form of love, which he believes is just damn good business. Bestselling author Steve Farber is the founder and CEO of the Extreme Leadership Institute, a learning and development firm devoted to helping its clients develop award-winning cultures and achieve radical results. The Institute's team has helped over 20 companies earn a ranking on the best places to work list. His much-anticipated new book, Love is Just Damn Good Business, is published by McGraw-Hill, and it is available right now. Steve, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Thank you, Ralph. It's great to be here with you.
I am looking forward to the conversation. Your book is interesting, and it is, I think, something that is increasingly entering into the conversation as we try to figure out why so many people are disengaged at work. And your thesis is that we should adapt to this idea of love. But tell us what that means to you. I know it's not huggy kissy, but something much deeper than that.
Right. So first of all, I love that you call the book interesting. I have a colleague that used to say, interesting is a word that we use when we mean something else. I'll assume that you actually meant interesting. So, this idea of love in business, let's just be really clear about what we don't mean by this and what I'm not talking about. This is not love as a romantic love. It's not love as a sentiment. It's not love as, California touchy-feely hoo-ha crap. This is about putting love into practice in the way that we do business. In other words, it's about love as a discipline, a set of behaviors, an approach to our customers, to our colleagues, to our employees, etc. And it's a very fundamentally, human thing. And I find it amazing, actually. First of all, I got to say, I love that you're having these kinds of conversations with your guests, because, we are seeing a trend in this direction, but honestly, it's not an entirely new trend. And in this direction, what I mean by that is people having expectations that work should be meaningful, that work should be engaging, and that work should be a place where we can bring ourselves authentically and fully to bear on what we're doing. We've been talking about this, and it's been brewing for almost as long as I've been doing this kind of work, which is really almost 30 years. And in the mid-'90s, back in my tenure at the Tom Peters Company, we had all kinds of discussions about, all of a sudden, authenticity and meaningfulness at work. Mm-hmm. And now here we are, too many years later, and we're still looking at it as some kind of emerging trend. Yeah. So I don't know that it actually is. I think it's been there all along, but maybe we're just becoming more willing to put it into the forefront and call it what it is and address it head on, which is why I wrote a book called Love is Just Damn Good Business. Slapped it right there on the cover and said, all right, let's see where this takes us.
Well, I do find that interesting because not many people are willing to go there. In fact, the way I was taught in business, and now this really sounds really outdated, is, you have your personal stuff that you keep at home and you have your work stuff that you keep at work, and never the two shall meet. You don't engage people on a personal level at work. You keep it all business, all professional. And that was the expectation, but that really doesn't create the kind of success, the kind of culture, the sort of engagement of recognizing that people are human beings and we need to relate to one another on a level that is all inclusive.
Yeah, that's right. I think if you look back to the olden days of business, where this idea started that business is business and personal is personal and never the twain shall meet. Maybe that was okay when people worked 9 to 5, never worked evenings, never worked weekends, took, all their vacations every year. Maybe it was okay then, although I don't think it was. But we spend more and more of our lives at work. So to think that somehow this major, huge chunk of our lives should be cold and impersonal is such a phenomenal waste of the human experience. And it also demands that we do something artificial, which is to pretend that we're different people at work and at home.
Yeah.
And that is literally not true. It's literally false. And literally, by the way, is a word I use literally. Or to say it another way, we are literally the same person at work and at home, right?
Right.
You don't arrive at your office or log onto your computer or whatever your work situation looks like at the beginning of the day, rip your heart out of your chest, throw it down on the sidewalk, do your work, and then at the end of the day, you pick it up, you stuff it back in your chest, and you go home and you use it. We're the same person. We carry our heart with us. And we just need to recognize that if we can create an environment and an expectation where people can really be passionate about and love their work, the people they're working with, the people they're working for, otherwise known as the customers, we're going to do a much higher quality of work and have a much better output, which means a much better financial performance for our companies.
What got you interested in pursuing this path? Was it something that unfolded over a number of years, or was it a eureka moment? What was the light bulb that went off for you?
Yeah, I would say it was more a gradual unfoldment punctuated by many eureka moments. How's that for a comprehensive answer? So let me explain what I mean. So my first experience in business when I was a young man in my 20s gave me the dramatic experience of the absolute polar opposite of loving your work. In other words, I hated my work. And what was so uniquely awful about that was it was also my own company. Because I was an entrepreneur. I started young in the world of just this whole expectation of I want to be in business for myself. And I got a job in the commodities futures business. I had a friend who was in that business. I needed work because I got married young. I had to feed a family. And he said, come on, I'll show you the ropes. And within 2 years, I had my own shop. But I hated that industry because I had a moral dilemma with seeing people lose their money all the time, which is what happens. It says, it's a speculative investment. There was nothing nefarious or dishonest going on. It was all full disclosure. It's like going to Vegas, right?
Right.
You don't go to Vegas and say, hey, you didn't tell me I was going to lose my money, or I could. The same was true with commodities. So it wasn't about doing anything that I felt was dishonest, but I had a values conflict with it. Because it's all about money and because it was very speculative, it just kind of attracted certain kinds of people I didn't want to be around. And also, I just couldn't bear the repeated experience of seeing my clients lose money. Even though they knew they could, I still didn't like it. So here I was with my own company, and I hated it, and I was miserable, and it was very unhealthy on a lot of levels. And I had kids, I had mouths to feed, I had huge responsibilities, and I also realized that this was going to kill me. And I mean that, again, literally. I think it would have killed me. And I got out. And that's when I started doing, I had a business background, so I started doing consulting work and training and all that sort of a thing back in the late 80s. And over the course of my career, I just got attracted to really amazing mentors like Tom Peters and Jim Kouzis, and I ended up being part of the management team at the Tom Peters Company. And over the years, what became increasingly clear as I worked with more and more people and more companies was that the greatest leaders that I'd met and the greatest teams that I'd seen and worked with and the greatest companies really came from a place of love. They didn't necessarily talk about it in that way, although sometimes they did. But if you looked at the behaviors, if you looked at how people extended themselves to others to help them be more successful, and to listen to how leaders talked about their teams with great love and affection. But it was all kind of under the surface, and it just got more and more obvious that this was something that we were all experiencing. And maybe that's a slight exaggeration. But let me put it this way. I really believe that most people, I can't prove it, but I believe that most people believe that love is just damn good business. But I also think that most people believe that most people don't believe that. So it ends up being, lurking in the corners, right? But I've just seen it too many times in too many companies, in too many parts of the world, in too many industries over the years, over and over again, to disregard it as a very significant truth.
You are the founder and the CEO of the Extreme Leadership Institute. What is the linkage there between authentic, real, extreme leadership and operating and leading and managing from a place of love as opposed to a very authoritarian type of a viewpoint?
Right. So let's start with the phrase extreme leadership, which is, as you mentioned, is the name of my company, it's the name of my platform. My first book, The Radical Leap, the subtitle was and is, still exists, A Personal Lesson in Extreme Leadership. So extreme leadership is really just my way of saying real leadership. In other words, not leadership by virtue of your position or your title or just calling yourself a leader, but real leaders are involved in extreme acts because it's about the act of transformation in some way or another, right? So extreme leadership was just my way of trying to say to people, look, if you're calling yourself a leader, but your work doesn't feel extreme, it doesn't feel like you're really pushing the boundary, it doesn't feel like you're changing your piece of the world for the better, it's not really leadership. It's just a label or a title. So extreme leadership is really kind of a redundant phrase. There shouldn't be any reason to modify the word leadership with the word extreme, because leadership is extreme. Now, what is it that extreme leaders do? Well, from my experience and in my estimation, they follow more or less a framework that I call the Radical Leap, which stands for love, energy, audacity, and proof. So the extreme leaders that I've met, the people that I would characterize as extreme, aka real leaders, they cultivate love, like we've been talking about. They generate energy around them. They inspire audacity in themselves and others. And by audacity, I mean that blank sheet of paper, all possibilities, change the world mindset. And they prove themselves. They don't just talk a good game. They prove themselves. So that's LEAP, love, energy, audacity, and proof. And the foundation of that whole thing is love, real, authentic, foundational love. Another way of thinking about it is love generates energy, inspires audacity, and requires proof. So this is the framework that I've been working with and teaching and consulting through and coaching with now for between 15 and 20 years. And this new book, Love is Just Damn Good Business, is taking the foundation of that and shining the spotlight on it. So that's what an extreme leader does. The extreme leader comes from that place of love in a real, authentic way. And because of that, they're willing to step up, take on greater challenges, be the revolutionary that you talk about, because their heart compels them to do it. They almost have no choice. If you really love the cause that you stand for, you're willing to take the risks necessary in order to manifest whatever it is that you're trying to create. So that's extreme. That's what the extreme leaders do, in my estimation.
Excellent. And then I would suppose that the mediocre or the nominal leaders are just content with the status quo and just kind of maintaining things the way they are. They're not willing to take the leap to the possibilities that are there, intrinsic in every organization and in every team. They're more of a manager than a leader. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I would take that one step further, but I think you encapsulated it right at the end. Management versus leadership, or whatever we call it. I don't think what you described is leadership. I mean, those are people who might call themselves leaders because it says it on their business card, or they might be in positions of authority in their company, sit prominently on their org chart, for example. But just having the title of leader doesn't make you a leader. So if you're not doing those things, striving to change things for the better, make this world, whether it's capital W world or small w world of your company or team, for that matter, if you're not striving to make that a better place, I don't really think that you could call yourself a leader. This is the dynamic that I often refer to as the poser. So somebody who dresses themselves up in the clothes of a leader, so to speak, puts the label on and wears the badge, but doesn't do anything significantly different. They're just posing. They like the accolades, the applause, the status, and I think we need to challenge ourselves to push it further if we're really going to live up to that title.
Your team has helped over 20 companies to earn a ranking on the best places to work list. It's got to be quite a challenge to bring this mindset and this new culture into a new awareness. I would imagine typically you are working in situations, in environments where it can be challenging. What, in your estimation, is the biggest hindrance? Why and how is it that more companies, more organizations don't embrace this concept of love as damn good business? What's the biggest hurdle that you have to help them overcome?
Yeah. So when you say it can be challenging, that's not quite it. It is inevitably challenging. It is always challenging. This is, one of my clients once said, this is not easy to do. You have to be ready to take the risks necessary to put this into practice, and you have to be prepared to leave your ego at the door because this is tough stuff. So we have this tendency to think of love as soft and squishy and hearts and flowers and rainbows, and that works nice on Valentine's Day. But day to day, love is tough stuff. To say that love is soft couldn't be further from the truth. It's hard. It's really hard. So the challenge I can summarize like this. It happens on a lot of levels, as you can imagine. If you're really trying to change the culture, even if you're starting out with a perfectly fine culture, thank you very much. For example, a client of ours in Seattle, Washington, is called OAC Services. They're a engineering and consulting company. Architectural firm. They do amazing building projects. They've been around for 65 years. They were doing just fine, thank you very much. But they wanted to energize their environment, attract new talent, attract even better clients. And they used the best place to work list as an objective measurement of their progress. And we worked with them for several years. This is not an overnight thing. So they made it to number 14 their first time out, and then they made it to number 2. This is the best place to work in the state of Washington, which is, you can imagine the competition there. And they're blowing up. I mean, they're going gangbusters. Their numbers are crazy. I wrote about them in the book, actually. But was it easy? Oh, hell no. For one thing, you have to get, obviously, as in any corporate initiative, there has to be a certain level of buy-in across the board, right? This is not something that you can force on somebody. You can't put a gun to their head and say, okay, you're going to start loving this place. It's love from now on. It's like that old joke, circulating a memo that's saying, from now on, morale will be better, whatever that was. You can't do that.
Firings will continue until morale improves.
That's right. That's it. Yeah, exactly.
I think I've read a few of those before.
There's a lot of variations on that theme. So obviously you can't do that. So it takes time. It's about enlisting people. And that means engaging them in the process and not forcing it on them. So really, if I were to characterize the challenge, it's having the intestinal fortitude to stay with it for the long haul, but it's also about getting into the weeds and challenging yourself to say, all right, as an organization, if we're really operationalizing love, energy, audacity, and proof, what should that look like in the way that we do business? So, for example, if we really did love our employees, how would we work differently? What needs to change? What policies or procedures or environment or decision-making process or performance evaluations are saying something other than, we want you to love this place, right? So you have to really get in the weeds and look at it. It's everything from the kind of people we hire and how we hire them, to the way decisions are made, to how meetings are run, to the values, the value statements of the organization. All of that stuff needs to be looked at through the lens of the things that we say are important to us. So we use LEAP as a framework, right? So if we can imagine it this way, whatever it is that you're trying to do in your organization, if you could cultivate love for that, generate energy in the pursuit of it, inspire people to be audacious in the implementation of whatever you're trying to do, and prove that you're making progress along the way, prove that you mean it, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you have a better chance of doing it. So it's a very kind of universal approach that's highly, highly adaptable. So that's, I think, the other challenge is that because it's so unique and personal to each organization, there really isn't a cookie cutter off the shelf, do X, Y, Z, and this will all fall into place. So that means we have to really get in the trenches and, work side by side, which is what any good consultant will do, certainly.
Well, that means, Steve, that you have to love your clients enough to get involved in their situation and come up with a customized plan to walk them through this very extraordinary process, doesn't it?
Well, I would say we damn well better. given what we stand for, yeah. And and honestly, what that means is that sometimes there will be clients that are not a good fit. If you've got for example, and this is hypothetical because I can't say we've run into this, but I can imagine a scenario, and I've seen this in other, times in my career early on. But if you've got a company that says, we really don't like these people that work for us, but this seems like a pretty smart approach. So can you make us appear to be caring, compassionate people, even though we're not? That would not be, let's just say, would not be an ideal client, right? So there's a lot of work that has to be done already, and that before we even enter the picture, which is, do we really want to do this? And is this something that resonates with our DNA as it is now? And then that becomes the foundation that we can take from there. So the way that I like to think about it, Ralph, is, and it's also happens to be the subtitle of the book and the way the book is structured. It's do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. So doing what you love is the foundation for this. So as a company, we're doing what we love. We're not going to work with anybody internally that's not really, obviously completely, a part of this. It's a part of who they are. Not just, I'll subscribe to that to work here. It's like, oh yeah, that's who I am. That's what we look for. Mm-hmm. But then second part is in the service of people. It's not enough for us to be having a great time doing what we're doing. We have to be serving our clients and serving them in such a significant way that they love us in return. That's where the reciprocity comes from. So in other words, we're not going to spend our time trying to serve people who want no part of this. And I think every business, every company has to make those kind of choices. We always hear you can't be all things to all people. You got to choose your niche and choose your market, and it's all true. Why not focus on the people that get it, the ones that are benefiting from what you're doing, and really focus your attention there and create more of those kinds of customers for yourself.
I love that. Do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. Very, very wise advice, and I think that applies to any organization, any company of any size, even you Rebelpreneurs, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small business owners. Love is universal, and people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. Who knows? Maybe we need to modify that to say that people want to do business with people they know, love, and trust, and really take that to the next layer of depth, if that makes sense, the heights and the depths of love. Steve, you've just released your book, Love is Just Damn Good Business. You've got workshops and training. What is the best way for people to reach out to you to find out about your book and about the other things that you have going on in terms of training and speaking and e-courses, books, videos, all the resources you have available?
Well, thank you for asking. There's we do a lot of things, everything from keynote speeches to workshops to events and et cetera. And of course, the culture process that I was just talking about. But I think the easiest place to start, I would invite people to come to loveisgoodbiz, BIZ.com. And what you'll find there is a self-assessment that we put together, which will help you kind of hold up the mirror and see where you are in this love, energy, audacity, and proof kind of journey. And I get really good feedback on it, because what it does is it generates a little report for you that's customized to your own self-scores, gives you some ideas to begin to experiment with, and kind of brings you into our community so we can communicate with each other. So loveisgoodbiz.com is a great place to start.
Excellent. Loveisgoodbiz.com. Also at stevefarber.com to get more of Steve and check out his other books as well. Multiple best-selling author Steve Farber. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom? I mean, the whole conversation has been dripping with wisdom, but I wonder if you have any big takeaway, big quote that would kind of sum up your philosophy for our listeners.
Sure. I would let me close with a suggestion, which is to start. There's so many ways to put into practice what we've been talking about here, but let's start with just asking yourself some version of this question. Whether you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, running a company, working for somebody else, wherever you are, ask yourself something like this: why do I love this work or this business or this team? You pick the context. And how do I show it? Or what do I love about this work and how can I show it better? So part of that is reflection. It's the why question. And part of it is practice. How do I show it? How do I put that into the way that I do business? And just see where that takes you.
I love that. Very, very practical, very wise. Something that you can take and apply right now to your relationships, to your business, to your family, your every area of life. Check yourself out. This has really been a lot of fun. Steve Farber. He is the best-selling author of Love is Just Damn Good Business, published by McGraw-Hill. He's the founder and CEO of the Extreme Leadership Institute, a learning and development firm devoted to helping its clients develop award-winning cultures and achieve radical results. Find out more and take that self-assessment at loveisgoodbiz.com or check out Steve at stevefarber.com. Steve, thank you so much for your wisdom and for your time today. I really appreciate you being on Rebelpreneur Radio. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. It's been my great pleasure.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.